Hi there. In this video, I want to go over my thoughts on an alternative way to handle sort of text alignment and how it's affected by extra padding, any material properties that you might change that would affect the size of the mesh or the quad for each characters. So let's take a look at this. If I was to type some characters, A, B, C, D, we can see that the text is stable as we type, shorter to larger characters. It never, moves up and down or readjusts it. Now, in order to keep it stable, we need some point to anchor all of this. And right now I'll focus on the top left, but the behavior will be consistent throughout the different anchor choices you make. So right now this top position is based on the ascender, which is the tallest point of any character in the set. And it turns out to be this $sign here, which is where it's set. Okay. There's different ways that I could set the ascender. I could use what's in the TTF font, or I could use the tallest of whichever characters you raster. So if you rastered 10 characters, I could pick the tallest of the 10 and use that, or just always use the one that's in the TTF. You give me your feedback, let me know what you think. So right now, regardless of what we would type, this would not move. If I was to click extra padding, as you can see now, the padding is disregarded in terms of effect on shifting up and down the characters. If I was to add underlay, as you can see, the mesh expands to make room for the underlay, but again, we're not adjusting the position of our anchors as a result of that. And I think that's the correct behavior for this time. Now, what happens if I was to type a larger character? Like on that same line, use the size attribute and make one thing larger. So this is an example. And I will make the E bigger. Let me shrink this so we can see it. So using the size attribute, I made the E bigger, and as you saw, the text shifted down. And if you were to type a line of text in Word, select one character and increase its point size, you would see that it shifts down. I believe that's the correct behavior because let's take a look at another thing. Let me turn on the word wrapping just so we can see this yellow thing and assume this yellow thing is what the rect transform is going to be. Now in this case, the rect transform would actually be up here. Okay. Now if we, and this rect transform will represent the region where any text that goes outside of that will either be clipped or masked, hard mask or a soft mask, but that's what will define the boundaries of the text itself. So if we didn't shift down, and now the yellow box will adjust, but if it didn't shift down when I typed, the larger characters, they would get cut off or be part of the masking, which would be a bad thing. So I think, we just don't have much of a choice but to push it down. So next thing to look at is multiple lines of text. So I'm going to type I and J. So in terms of the left anchor, let me adjust the line spacing here. So in terms of the left anchor, every character has an X offset and a Y offset, which basically determines from which point a character is drawn. So right now the 0, 0 point is right here. So the I is shifted to the left and the J happens to be a character with the biggest negative offset, which is why it actually crosses that line. Now, the issue here is if this was the rect transform and it was drawn right here and we had clipping on, then this, or a masking on, then this piece of the J would not be visible. Okay? And I'll come back to this, so just keep that in mind. Now, in terms of this alignment, this is how Word handles it. And if you were to type in Word 1 and J, this does not look aligned, but it is, and that's how Word represents it. It just turns out that the number 1 has the most positive X offset and J has the most negative, and this is the biggest contrast you can see. Now, from font to font, that is different. There are fonts who have no offset on the X position and are all drawn at the same spot. Other ones are all over the place, okay? But right now we're doing it the way Word does it. Now, what happens if I type another character like J, but I use the size attribute to make it like much bigger? So now as you can see, this J is no longer aligned like we had the I and J or V and W or whatever. It's actually shifted on the inside. This is how Word does it as well. But now I'll go back to this point about direct transform. If direct transform was here, we'd cut off like a big section of this. So our thoughts, or my thoughts are, I want to use direct transform to determine or represent the visible bounds of the mesh where clipping occurs, where masking occurs, and all that stuff. And then introduce another piece, which would be a margin. So it would be inside direct transform, you would have like another rectangle that would represent where the margin is. And the anchor position would actually be, if direct transform was the yellow line and the margin was where I'm drawing with my cursor, the text would be anchored right here. So it would be offset inside direct transform. So that way the J would not get masked or clipped or anything. It would sort of extend inside the margin, but it would still be inside the safe area, I guess if we can call it that. Okay, so again, share your thoughts and opinions on that. Now the next thing I want to show where I actually do it differently than Word, and I think it's kind of subjective, but I prefer it this way. If I was to type or cut and paste a bunch of characters, in this case they're French characters, and by the way, this is about hockey. Let me switch to a character set that has accents. I'm sad that my Montreal Canadiens were taken out of the Stanley Cup playoffs yesterday by the New York Rangers, but I'll survive. But anyway, this is why this French text is about hockey. I was trying to also, be politically correct and not have anything controversial. So anyway, so here's our text. What if I made this letter T bigger? Okay. And now, as you can see, as I made the T bigger, the line spacing didn't get adjusted. And in Word, if you were to take different lines and type characters of different sizes, the line spacing is adjusted for the tallest character. I personally don't like that because if I was to adjust line spacing, which I can, and kind of zoom out and look at it, to me, the lines are consistently spaced. The way Word does it is you end up with lines that look uneven in terms of their spacing, and I actually don't like that. So I would much prefer to do it this way and adjust line spacing to accommodate, the taller characters, as opposed to having like irregular spaces in between the lines. So again, share your thoughts and let me know what you think. So basically, this is it for this video. Give me your feedback. This is the way I'm currently thinking of implementing it. If you think there's some major flaws in it, please do tell. Thanks for watching.